Today I want to talk to you about a journey. Specifically, this journey. This is the first version of Catching Hell Part 1. And I wanted to tell you this story because it's one that I think a lot of writers either don't hear or need to hear, or they're just not familiar with. Perhaps it will inspire you to go back to writing what it was you were writing. Perhaps it will inspire you to purchase the brand new version. The point is, I feel that this is a story that needs to be told, because it's one that's incredibly important and personal to me as a writer and as a person. But first I want to take you back to 1995. In 1995, I had the idea for a book. It wasn't called Catching Hell, but it did take place in the same world, what I call the Ryujin world. And as a matter of fact, I have it right here, written by hand. I was allergic to paragraphs. I really was. I am not kidding. Terrible. Every bit of it. Hackneyed and cliched. You don't even want to imagine the errors that are in this book. And that's okay. I wasn't a professional writer. I was 15 years old. But it did almost cause me to flunk out of grade 11. I moved on. Years later, many lives lived, I decided to start writing again. Did I start on a laptop? No. I wrote on this. This is a fold-out keyboard for a Palm Pilot. A Sony Palm Pilot that had some pretty rudimentary word processing on it. This is what I used to write the first part of Catching Hell. It's obviously broken. I hang on to it for sentimental reasons. I began writing it when I first started a job that was very good for me physically, but wasn't terribly mentally stimulating. So I would take my laptop, I would go up to an empty cubicle, and I would just start writing in this world. And that's exactly what I did. For 1 year. 1 year of writing in my little cubicle, bit by bit, 45 minutes a day, if I wasn't watching YouTube or doing something else. 1 year. 250,000 words. Catching Hell was the end result. It's like I always say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. I thought books were supposed to be long, so I just started writing a long book. And the end result was an epic science fantasy by the name of Catching Hell. I then started editing it. So the editing process, that was 4 years. It was on and off in there, I admit, but the entire thing took 5 years from initial concept to writing to editing to where I got it to a point where I'm like, now, you know what, it's good. There's nothing more that I can do for this. I ended up sending it out to a couple of editors just to see what they thought, and they each said the same thing. This needs work. You gotta split it in half. Nobody is picking up a 250,000 word first science fantasy novel from a no-name with no education. I can't say that they were wrong. I found a natural split, and I turned it into 2. Journey, destination. And I was very happy with it there. And then I did nothing with it, for quite some time. After many years at that job, I'd moved positions. I now had an office, and I was doing something that was a little bit more mentally stimulating. I didn't need Catching Hell as the escape anymore, but I still had it. I had the rough outline of a manuscript, and it was ready to go. But I did nothing with it. My wife was very encouraging, saying, hey, you wrote a book, you should do something with it. It's pretty amazing that you did that. I had just written it, and I had thought, well, anybody could have done this. As time has gone on, I've realized that's still mostly true. It's just that most people don't necessarily have the motivation to do it, or they have the motivation to do something else that inspires them, and this is what it was for me. So, I decided to make a go of it on February 29th, 2016. That was the day I decided that I really wanted to see if I could get it out there into the world. And I began the process. I did a bunch of other writing stuff too that maybe you've heard me talk about some other times. But for the most part, I'm focusing on Catching Hell. And in this case, what I wanted to do was get it out to a publisher. I learned how to query, and I got it out, and I was sending it out just like so many authors can tell you. And this is where I went through that quintessential, here's your query, great, here's your rejection 3 months later, if you get anything at all. Pro tip to a lot of you writers starting out, a lot of these publishing houses don't even write you back. They don't give you the courtesy. Do not worry about them. Focus on your next mission and get it back out there. I wanted to work with somebody local, somebody who was nearby me, because I figured that I wasn't going to shoot for the stars just yet. I wanted to keep it much more intimate because I was just learning, and that's how you learn. I'm not going to learn by shooting from half court. I'm going to learn from the layup, and that's exactly what I attempted to do. Eventually, after my list of rejections, I got accepted. Yay, finally. I was able to do what I wanted to do. I was able to be a published author. That was fantastic. I sent out the word. Everybody was cheering me on. It was great. 2 weeks. It lasted 2 weeks. What had happened was, 2 weeks after I had signed the contract, the publishing company went under. They weren't going to release anything anymore, and all their contracts were null and void. I had never seen anything like this before because I was still new to the industry, and it shattered me. But in that time, I was able to pick myself up again and write another book, which ended up becoming my first release, Death Dresses Poorly. So, the wheels were in motion. I was gaining too much momentum to stop. So this is what I did. Got back on the horse and started releasing it again. I spread my net a little bit wider this time. Now I was focusing on all of Canada instead of just Western. Any established writer can tell you that it's a slog in order to get yourself published. The fact that I had been able to get this book picked up twice was quite astonishing. So, I focused on this one particular publisher, got it in their hands. They accepted it. Their thing was that they did primarily ebooks, and I didn't care because I believe that ebooks is the way of reading things in the future anyway. It's just the way it is, folks. You kind of got to accept it at this point. It's either that or audiobooks, which I'm also into. So, got it to them. They accepted it. Started working with them. Fantastic. Until it actually started to get made. Now, I'm not going to tell you that it was a bad experience. In fact, quite the opposite. It was incredibly educational. We got the ebook out. I gave them the design concept that I was really thinking of, my napkin sketch of what I wanted the cover art to be, and that initially was what I ended up with. This guy right here. Pretty close to what it was that I had drawn. Not sure about the BDSM stuff that's on my two protagonists, Johan and Aryu here, but I was willing to let something like that slide because it was so close to what I had envisioned. Then it got released. And I realized something. Something I probably should have realized in the first place. It wasn't edited very well. Now, that's not necessarily on them, and it's not necessarily on me. They were pumping things out at an amazing rate, and I was just a bright-eyed brand new author. Fantastic. It's out there at least. Hey everybody, just ignore these terrible mistakes and the occasional references to a character that I had written out years ago. Don't worry about that. People worried about that. During this whole time, there was a hustle for me to get Part 2 released. Now, Part 2 was competently edited by the good people at Fluky Fiction who had released my Death Dresses Poorly, the very first book that I had. I have a great time working with them, and I'd asked if they would do some freelance editing for me, which they agreed to. The second one was so much prettier. The cover wasn't quite the same idea as what this one was because I had to grab it myself. I had to rush to get Part 2 out, and maybe at some point I'll tell that story. I'll glaze over it for now. It's a great story about getting that hustle done, but it's also a great story about the industry. Another time. So, in 2018, Catching Hell Part 1, Journey, was released in the spring, and I was ecstatic about it. Warts and all. And that's okay, because I'm not planning on doing this as a career, so I could let these little kind of foibles slide by. They never really bothered me, until time had started to go on and people started noticing these things. And that's when I realized that I could probably give it a good edit. I was thinking about giving it back to the Fluky Fiction team when it was dropped. What had ended up happening was the publishing house that I was with at the time ended up selling their imprint to somebody else. Now, this new imprint was taking everybody who was their clients carte blanche. They're just like, you got a book with them, now you got a book with us. Good for you. We don't want to ruffle the bed here. We just want to make sure that everybody gets paid and you can still be published. I thought that that was fantastic. But you got to do your research. I started looking into what this group was, and I don't mind what they're doing. It's good for some people, but I didn't feel that it was good for me. So I went to where I always go to whenever I'm not sure what to do. Twitter. Those that know me know that I love Twitter when it comes to crafting a writing community, and I attempt to avoid all the more toxic parts of it that are out there. And I put the word out like, hey, what do you guys think I should do? And who chimed in? Fluky Fiction. Basically saying, hey, we like what you got. We'll take a look at it. Send it our way. And that's exactly what I did. So now it's been dropped not once, but twice. And now it's back in the hands of a competent group who I know can do the right thing with this. They took a look at it, had some ideas, and said that they wanted to release it. And then that's where we are right now. We've gone over the editing process. Thankfully, it has been competently edited. I'm extremely happy with the state that it's in right now. It's got a brand new cover design that you will see. I can't wait to get it back out in the form that it was supposed to be in the first place, and let people experience the Ryujin World debut Catching Hell journey the way that it was supposed to be done. Fluky Fiction saved my ass again, and I thank them for it. And I cannot wait to work with them more in the future. This has been a journey, as any good book is, especially one called Journey. I'm not going to tell you it's the greatest book in the world. I'm not going to tell you that it revolutionizes the science fiction fantasy tropes that you have all come to accept. What I am going to tell you is it's my book, and I'm damn proud of it. And you should be proud of what it is that you're working on as well. These are our gifts to the world. These are what will live on long after we're gone. I love this story. I love these characters. And I hope that you do too. Thank you very much. I hope to take a look at it. Tuesday, May 25th, the re-release of Catching Hell Part 1 Journey comes to you. I hope you check it out. Thank you very much.